name's Aaron Hurd. I'm the State Soil Health Specialist for the NRCS, Nebraska. It's really a pleasure to talk to you today, and I'm excited about soil health, soil testing, and urban work that we're doing here at NRCS, so really glad to have this opportunity. This is a really cool set of monoliths because it comes from a long-term tillage study that is being completed by UNL. Paul Yaza has completed this study now for 42 years. And it's long-term tillage versus long-term no tillage.
Sure.
In corn bean rotation. It's a controlled traffic system, and it's on an exarban soil. Exarban is a really prolific soil in eastern Nebraska. It's really important for agriculture, and a lot of our cities and towns and where we live is on exarban. It's a landscape position that's friendly to all of those activities. The functions of soil are either manipulated or changed by the accumulation of the things that management causes in the soil. And that accumulation is either helpful or hinders the functions of the soil. But today I really just wanted to key in on the soil structure issues that have developed through time. This end set of plots or monoliths here is from a long-term no-till plot. This is 40 years of no-till planting and controlled traffic. And they are a lot different than each other. And the middle set of plots, or monoliths here, is from a set of plots that 11 years ago was converted to no-till and cover crop use.
Okay.
And so we have kind of good on the end, bad on this end, and on the way in the middle. And I like to show the spectrum of that accumulation of benefits because this one clearly has some structural issues. We've got a crust problem that prevents crop emergence and crusting, and that would prevent water infiltration. Just underneath of there is a compaction layer, probably resultant from field cultivation and tire traffic. And you can see platy soil structure in here, massive, it's like a brick. That really prevents a lot of root movement and a lot of water movement in the soil. And then just below there is this 4 to 8 inch section. This is unconsolidated, mixed and stirred soil from the disking that occurs every spring.
Right.
And you can even see the scallop of the disc blades in that soil profile.
Right.
And the disc blade rests on this soil down here, and that's where the compaction occurs from the disc itself. And it's got about 250 psi per blade that's pushing down on the soil, and then we're moving forward and torquing that soil at that point.
Right.
And so it really results in extremely high bulk densities at this depth. And then this plot is, don't forget, fall plowed every year.
Sure.
And so back here on the back, we can see on that B horizon, the subsoil, there's a plow pan that results, and it's like a chalkboard.
Right.
And that's an old-timey term for the chalkboard, the plow pan that we depended on for plowing to work. But it's there stopping roots in their tracks. And it's preventing water movement, air movement, and really all of the functions of the soil. So this plot really portrays the accumulation of the degradation of soil and how that impacts the roots growing through the soil. We can see some root movement down through major cracks between clods. And then right here, we can see the planter opener. There's actually a split in the soil from the planter itself, creating a preferential crack, and then we get this mohawk of roots. And it can be really detrimental to the proliferation of roots in the soil profile. We're all isolated to this one little zone. So then we run out of water, we run out of nutrients in that zone, and creates an agronomic issue that we've got to put a lot of inputs right there in that little microclimate in order to grow a crop at this point.
So you've talked about management of the soil, and so how does soil health play into management decisions for either large scale or the backyard farmer?
Absolutely, that's a really great question, and I think starting with that, first description shows us maybe a condition that we might find in an existing crop field. Maybe we don't currently plow, but somebody has plowed in the past. And a lot of times these lower bulk density problems, the compaction layers are still there in crop fields, and even gardens from rototillers, we can have a compaction layer at depth.
Sure.
And that compaction layer impacts agronomic productivity. And so as far as soil health, I think these other monoliths really portray some soil health techniques that are improving that soil structure. And structure equals function in soil.
Exactly.
When we have some structure developing, we begin to have these highlights of soil productivity that arise from the soil actually doing what it can do, functioning.
Right.
And so this 11 years of cover crop and a no-till system really portrays how the no-till practice itself is a soil health tool.
Mm-hmm.
No-till planting prevents us from destroying the soil structure that was built last year. It retains what we accumulated last year, and then it can start from that point and move forward. So it's every year we gain a little bit more soil structure, and we're not destroying it in this profile. And so the roots create these vertical passageways across that 4 to 6 inch layer. That's that really unconsolidated, massive, compacted layer, and all of the other layers that exist in this profile, and the platy soil structure in the surface. It's all changing slowly with these roots going through that, and that's what cover crops do. Here in this cylinder is where the corn and beans are grown every year. This is controlled traffic, and so they're grown every 2 inches apart every year in the same spot.
Right.
But the roots don't proliferate out into the row very far, and you can see some roots in this. However, cover crops are planted on 7.5 inch rows all the way across this plot, and so those roots are attacking the soil structure more broadly across the whole field. So cover crops that are distributed and can address soil structure issues between crop rows is also really a good use of that tool, and another reason why they're working. This shows the long-term benefits of no-till management, and when we can put cover crops on a soil that's already at this stage, cover crops really wake the soil up, they bring the soil biology, they have a place to live immediately, and we start to see the benefits of cover crops working in that ecosystem really rapidly. And it's simply a build it and they will come sort of situation.
Right.
The soil structure's here, and we've got granular structure, subangular blocky soil structure, over prismatic soil structure, just like nature intended. And that all accumulated over 40 years of proper management, and it took a long time. This middle set of plots shows that cover crops can speed that rate of change. It still takes time.
Right.
And so that's the portrayal and the kind of the journey towards soil health that we can be on in crop fields in eastern Nebraska. And I liken this to gardening. I'm an avid gardener, and I'm implementing a no-till garden, and I'm using drip systems and some woven fabric weed barrier that's over cover crop material, and I'm trying to do good crop rotations and nutrient management and maintain that soil structure that's there, or improve it if I need to with cover crops and lack of compaction sort of activities.
Sure.
To ensure that I either retain what I've got or improve it wherever I'm at in this spectrum of soil structure degradation. The other thing that I like to point out to folks is residue management, and no-till systems maintain a lot of residue. These profiles really show that. We've buried a lot of residue in this plot. There's a big chunk of residue buried down here. That's what tillage accomplishes, and that residue doesn't just immediately disappear just because we buried it. It really takes biology to make it go away. This plot, you can see the center of the cobs are all rotten, the stalks are all rotting away, and it's starting to degrade. But it's got way more residue than this 40-year no-till plot, because there's a lot of biology in this 40-year no-till plot.
And so they're eating up that residue.
It's
that much
super
quicker.
active soil, and so there's way less residue here than even on this 11-year no-till plot. And so a lot of no-till problems initially are, well, I've got so much residue. It takes a little while for the biology to get enough
to catch up.
volume in order to eat all and consume all of that. But once it's started, it can really consume a lot of carbon.
And as agriculture has progressed, either on a large scale or the backyard scale, we have spent a lot of time focusing on what goes on above ground. Now we're starting to realize that there's just as much going on below ground as there is above.
Absolutely, and an investment in the roots. Most of our soil carbon comes from the root biomass, not from the above ground biomass. So we can keep the soil covered with plant residues, but we also need to retain those roots and let them enter into the ecosystem as food and dead and rotting material. So then we can accumulate that carbon resource and that energy as a food and continue to build the soil. So the soil color here has changed a whole chroma. Is that right, or value?
Yeah.
It's been where 3.2 to 2.2?
Yeah, value and chroma.
Value and chroma. So the soil profile here has changed a whole value and chroma in color.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
so we can see that accumulation of the carbon in this soil profile over here.
Right. So from a laboratory standpoint, what are some tests that we could run to help really dial in on that soil health and to show that we are actually improving things? What do you guys
Absolutely.
look for?
So I can speak to some monitoring activities and things that we're doing, and I'll let Carlos talk about some lab tests and things that we're also promoting. I am a big champion of monitoring soil health.
Sure.
We need to inventory it and get a benchmark of soil properties and functions that are out in the crop field. I'm a big fan of monitoring residue cover. We need to make sure we should never see healthy soil.
Right.
It's a pretty easy principle, keep it covered.
Yep.
We should try and disturb it less or not at all, so we can see what full width annual disturbance accumulates versus what not disturbing at all does. And eventually, the lack of disturbance will result in good soil productivity. The other thing that I like to monitor is bulk density. We've talked about the density of this soil, and when we take a 3-inch bulk density sample from this, we're really capturing the heart of the density problems in this profile.
Sure.
And that would tell me something that's gonna actually change with cover crop use, because this is the zone where most of the cover crop roots are gonna be accumulating as well. And so the bulk density in that 3-inch sample can change and be a measurement of success for cover crops pretty rapidly for a landowner or even a gardener.
Right.
And then I really like to do just a standard chemical analysis that tells me some carbon information, so that I know where I'm at with my soil organic matter or total soil organic carbon. There's a lot of biological tests now, and I'm a big fan of all of them, of course.
Sure.
I'd say pick one that you think is repeatable, that you think you can accomplish at the same time of year each time that you measure it,
Right.
so that you're looking at agronomically the same sort of activity in the soil at that time of year, year to year,
Sure.
if you're going to try and make comparisons. And then, we're looking at aggregate stability. That's a rapidly changing soil analysis and property that accumulates. And, that results in other opportunities for correlation.
Sure.
So,
Hi, my name is Carlos Villarreal. I'm the State Soil Scientist for the USDA NRCS in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'd be glad to talk about soil health and urban agriculture and conservation and resource concerns with you today. Okay, so yeah, as Aaron mentioned, we do have resource concerns. Obviously, this is from a cropland field, which represents the vast majority of the state of Nebraska. But these are not unique to cropland systems. As Aaron mentioned, we do have these in our backyard. We can think of many scenarios that we do in our yard, in our gardens, that would result in some of these degraded conditions. For example, the tillage layer. The weekly activity of mowing your yard could create a compaction layer. Could create that tillage, well, it wouldn't be a tillage pan, but could create that root restrictive layer that would also impact the depth or the quality of turf grass that you're growing. Other things, bulk density. We have issues with runoff in our yards. We try to reinforce the idea reiterate that we are in a watershed, regardless if you're out in a rural area or if you're in an urban area. You are part of the watershed. You are in a community to enhance clean water, to address issues that affect runoff and the same resource concerns that cropland producers have. We have the same thing with gardens, with the backyard farmers. So when it comes to testing, we try to recommend testing for those dynamic soil properties, the soil properties that do change with management over time. So like Aaron mentioned, bulk density, aggregate stability, again with the soil biological sampling. We do want to emphasize right now, you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of benchmark data about how, your initial readings, what does that mean? We still have a lot of interpretation to do. But in the meantime, it's great to collect that data and then use that as a benchmark, whether you're improving, whether you're declining. It's equally as important. You can evaluate any practice that you've done, any kind of management system that you've adopted or something that you've changed. You would hope to find either an upward trend or a downward trend in some of those dynamic soil properties.
So in summary, soil is not an inert growing medium. It's a living, life-giving natural resource. It's teeming with billions of bacteria, fungi, and other microbes that are the foundation of an elegant, symbiotic ecosystem. Soil health is defined as the continued capacity of the soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. Soil health really comes down to management decisions and what kind of impact those decisions have on the soil. The main principles to manage soil for health are as follows. Maximize presence of living roots. Are we currently a monoculture, or do we have multiple crops that we rotate through a particular system? Minimize disturbance. Are we currently a conventional operation that maybe needs to shift its focus to no-till or minimum till at best? Maximize soil cover. Do we have living roots in the soil at all times? Whether that's with an active cash crop or a cover crop that's planted in the fall or in conjunction with an active cash crop. Are we maximizing biodiversity? Do we have the opportunity to work in livestock into the operation? If you don't have livestock, that may be a good opportunity to team up with a neighbor or someone else that you know that has livestock so they can utilize those cover crops that you plant as a feed source and to cycle those nutrients as needed. Here at Midwest Laboratories, we have many tests we can run to help track the improvements you are making on your operation. We have Soil Health Basic, which gives a simplified look at the chemical aspect of the soil, or an S1AN, to the Soil Health Complete, which gives a more in-depth look at the chemical analysis of the soil, like the S3C. And both the basic and complete include the one-day CO2 burst, as well as the Haney test with soil health calculation. Other testing that was mentioned, for example, was bulk density, which we do here at Midwest. It really comes down to the test you want to use for measuring the success of your operation, and here at Midwest Labs, we're ready to help you figure that out. Give us a call today or visit us at midwestlabs.com. And also our friends at the NRCS office would love to have that conversation with you as well.